Hello and welcome to our presentation today of Microsoft Lync 2013 Present Like a Pro. When we talk about presenting like a pro today, we're going to cover some of the more advanced presenter skills that you might need in order to conduct a really fabulous presentation within Lync 2013. Today we're going to move beyond the basics that we covered in Online Meeting Basics. If you haven't yet completed that course, you may wish to go back. Today we're not going to cover any topics having to do with scheduling your meeting, so you may want to go back and complete that course if you wish to be more familiar with those tools. Today we'll talk about what to do after you've joined your meeting. We'll talk about managing meeting audio and video. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about managing meeting content and some of the advanced tools that are available there. We'll spend a little bit more time talking about managing meeting participants. And then we'll briefly discuss topics like the Lync Web App, as well as how to record your Lync meeting. Throughout today, we'll be touching on some best practices, and those are summarized for you at the end of our presentation. Note that there are a number of additional resources available, and those will help you later on. As you do have some questions, you'll note that there are a number of how-to articles and help topics as well. When we talk about Lync meetings, in general, we have those loosely categorized as either a collaborative meeting or a more structured meeting. Now, of course, these are not exclusive meeting types. There's a lot of mixing and matching that goes on in terms of which features you may choose to use within your meeting. When we talk about a collaborative meeting, generally what we mean here is that the meeting participants are all able to contribute to the conversation and share information with one another. This could be something like a small team meeting where everyone is contributing. Could be even a one-on-one collaboration with a colleague, a demo to an outside potential client. These can also either be something that you've scheduled in advance, or of course something where you've added something to an existing Lync conversation. When we talk about those more structured meetings, on the other hand, in general, these are meetings that you scheduled in advance from Outlook. They are, rather than being a purely exchange of ideas, these are generally more presenter-driven. Oftentimes, the attendees are only participating at certain designated points within the presentation. You could, for example, be delivering a more formal training presentation to a larger group, or even doing an orientation to a smaller group. Let's review a little bit about getting started within your meeting. Remember that there are a number of ways that you can join your Lync meeting. Recall that you can join that meeting from the calendar invitation itself. Remember that there's a Join Lync Meeting button up on the ribbon portion of that invitation, as well as the Join link that's down within the text area of the invitation. You also have the ability to join your meeting from your Outlook reminder. That's a nice little shortcut. When you get that reminder, notice that you can just click the button that says Join Online. And last, there's a new way to join your meetings, and you can find that from the Lync environment having nothing to do with Outlook. There will be a Meetings View tab that you'll see in your main window, and under this you'll see a list of all of the meetings that you have scheduled for the day. This, by the way, will include both online meetings as well as face-to-face meetings. To join that Lync meeting, you can either double-click on the meeting subject or right-click and click the Join button. Once you do that, either way you choose to join the meeting, you'll go through the sequence of steps to get you connected. One of the first things that you'll see is a prompt to join the meeting audio. By default, most likely you'll be prompted to join the meeting audio using Lync Audio. That's generally available to most people. Depending upon how Lync is being deployed within your organization, you may also have the ability to join by having Lync call you if you have Lync Enterprise Voice, Or if you have dial-in audio conferencing available, of course, you'll have those dial-in numbers published within the meeting invitation itself. Once you join the meeting, it may not initially look much like a meeting. It may look very much like a conversation, even if you have a number of people who've already joined. Remember that you'll use that quick link bar to determine which meeting elements you'd like to add to your meeting. For example, if you wish to connect to audio after you've joined the meeting, you simply connect to that link audio by clicking the little handset icon in your quick link bar. That's the one that has everything to do with audio. Once you're connected, you can make further changes by hovering over that audio icon. Notice, for example, that you have a Devices tab, and this allows you to change which device you're using on the fly. For example, if you've recently been in a face-to-face meeting, you've come back to your desk, it's time to join a meeting from your laptop, and you realize, oh, I've forgotten to connect my headset, you can simply plug it in and change your device here on the fly. Again, that's through the audio menu. Once you have your audio connected, remember that you can add meeting content. You certainly don't have to. You can just have an audio conversation if you wish. But remember that everything content related you'll find under the Content menu. The first tab that you see here says Present, and there's where you can select from a number of content items to add to the content stage area for display. And last, you'll use the Participants menu to either view your list of participants or to take action with those participants. Again, if you hover over the Participants icon, that's when you'll get the menu here where you can select to either view participants or view available actions. If you click on the Participants menu, that's when you'll have your participants list docked in the menu area above the conversation window. Once you are connected to the audio, notice further that when you hover over that audio tab, for example, you may wish to access the dial pad. That's very helpful if you need to put in any additional codes. Notice as well that from each one of these three tabs, you have the ability to mute your audio, which incidentally you can also do just by clicking on that handset icon. You can also place the call on hold. Once you've connected to the meeting audio, then you have the option as to whether or not you'd like to broadcast your webcam video as well. The quickest way to do this is just to hover over that video icon in the quick link bar. That's the one that looks like a television camera. When you hover over this, Lync will automatically start tuning your webcam, and within just a few seconds, your image will appear. You're still in preview, though, until you click on Start My Video, so just be assured that you have a second or two to make any last-minute adjustments before you start broadcasting that video. Once you click Start My Video, your video will display to other meeting participants. Depending on how you've chosen to view audio or video, that will be determined in your layout selections. Once you click Start My Video, it is displayed, and it will continue to display until you choose either to stop your video or, if you wish to leave the video connection altogether, select Leave Video. Now, you do have some options in terms of how you want to view the video feed that's coming into your meeting. What we're looking at right now is a modified view of the gallery layout. The gallery is a layout that allows you to see a pane of attendees streaming video, attendees and presenters. But what we've done here is we've chosen to pop this pane out. You can also resize it. So if you wish to see more of the gallery or if you wish to see more of the content area, you're able to see this as well. Further, you can make changes by right-clicking on an attendee's name or even on their photo within the gallery view, and you can select to lock the video spotlight. When you do that, what happens is the person you've selected, their photo or video feed becomes docked in the lower right-hand corner of the meeting environment. This is also what it looks like when you are in speaker view, incidentally. That image will continue to be available for everyone in the meeting until another presenter unlocks the video spotlight or locks it on someone else. Further, you do always have the option to right-click on anyone's video feed or user photo and look at that full screen as well. As far as audio goes, we do have some best practices to share with you here. What we found is that oftentimes if you are connected to your meeting on a wireless connection, sometimes that can degrade the quality of that connection and what you hear in terms of the sound. You may also wish to experiment and find out if there's any difference in the quality of that audio connection, whether you are connected to or not connected to your remote corporate network. We always recommend everyone to test your device just to make sure that it is working properly, particularly if you're about to start a more structured meeting. And once you've done that, speaking of devices, we do strongly encourage everyone to use a headset and one with a good quality microphone. Again, that's just going to support the best sound quality within your meeting. Incidentally, if you happen to be in a meeting, generally these are more collaborative, but they don't have to be. If you happen to be in a meeting where you are in a physical conference room with a couple of people, and then you have additional meeting participants who are joining remotely, just remember that only one person there in the conference room needs to connect to the meeting audio, particularly if you're using a room system or a speakerphone, another type of device where everyone in the room hears the audio. Only one person needs to connect, and that will avoid any potential feedback. Let's move on then and talk about meeting content in greater detail. Remember that the content that we'll talk about today, we are specifically approaching content from the perspective of a scheduled meeting. However, remember that the same content options are available for you within a conversation. You'll have all the same available content choices that you can add to a conversation as you would in a scheduled meeting, though of course some content types lend themselves more or less to a collaborative or structured meeting. Remember that you will find your content in the content menu of your quick link bar, and that's the menu that is represented by that icon that looks like a monitor. The first content option that we'll look at today is desktop sharing. I do want to note that there is support for multiple monitors. So if you have just one monitor, your option will say desktop. If you do have multiple monitors, you can select either your primary or secondary monitor. We would recommend against sharing both simultaneously simply because the view of that for your attendees is not going to be very easily viewed. So you might want to select one monitor or the other. Once you select to share your desktop, your entire desktop will display to all meeting participants. You want to think about this desktop sharing as being the same as if you were in a conference room and you were projecting from your laptop, for example. So notice that if you have a number of applications open, it doesn't look very clean. In fact, it might be difficult for your attendees to know what it is that you're trying to direct their attention to. So as a best practice, again, probably you want to close out of any applications that aren't pertinent to the conversation. Also, that is going to support you in terms of having any delays. Application sharing, especially if you have a lot of people in the meeting, it can be rather bandwidth intensive. So making sure that you don't have a ton of applications running at the same time can help conserve that bandwidth. Remember as well to turn off any desktop notifications if you can, because of course those will also display to meeting participants. Now, an alternative to sharing your entire desktop is to choose to share a program instead. This is great if there's only one application that you need to either display to meeting participants, or if you're working with a colleague, say on a proposal in Word, if that's the only thing you're going to be working on, you might as well select just to share the one program. It keeps things a little bit more focused. To do that, from your content menu, you simply click where it says Program. And Lync will give you a visual representation of all of the applications you have open currently at that moment. This is really helpful. With the visual representation, you just need to click the box of what it is you want to share, and then click the button that says Present. When you do that, the sharing begins, but you'll notice that unlike with our desktop sharing, there's only one application that is highlighted. No matter how many things you have open on your desktop, this one selected program is the only thing that attendees will see. You are helped to know which it is that's being displayed by this golden outline that appears around that application. And while you're sharing, you will see a sharing toolbar. It will appear for you in the center top of your monitor, and there are only a couple of commands on this toolbar. One is to give you the ability to give control to another meeting participant. So again, very helpful if you're working with a colleague collaboratively on a project. You can give control, select that person's name, and then what happens is that person has the ability to contribute on that application even if they don't have it installed. Once you're ready to be done sharing, all you need to do is click Stop Presenting. The sharing stops. Nothing remains on your attendee's computer, and you simply go back to the meeting environment. Now, of course, in a more formal type of meeting, or simply one that has a set agenda, you may wish to upload one or even several PowerPoint presentations. To do that, again, from your content menu, you just click on PowerPoint. Then you're able to browse out, select the file you want to bring into your meeting. Once it's done uploading, it will appear here in the content stage. And of course, you can continue to add more content, or you can do that later. Once your PowerPoint presentation is displayed, and note that in this view, we're looking at what's called either presentation or content view. We've maximized the view of the meeting content here within the stage. We could certainly choose to view the conversation window and even the participant list. To navigate through your presentation, you'll want to click in the lower right-ish corner of the meeting environment where it says Thumbnails. That will give you, again, a visual representation of each one of the slides in your presentation. To move forward through your content, click the arrow just below. And the other thing to know is every time you click on that arrow icon, it will bring in any animations or builds that you have in your presentation. So remember, you click on that arrow to move things forward as well as to bring in your animations. An alternative to the thumbnails view is that you may instead choose to view speaker notes. If you've added any scripting or bullet points to your presentation, you can choose to view those down below the slide. These will not display for attendees, by the way. You can still continue to advance your slides by clicking on that arrow icon. It will still bring in your builds. You're just looking at your speaker notes instead of that thumbnails view. Another tool you may wish to use as you are displaying your PowerPoint presentation are the annotation tools. Now, you may have noticed previously, your annotations are collapsed. They're hidden. But it's always here for you as a presenter. To access those annotation tools, you just click on that little pen icon, and then the toolbar expands for you. This is where you can do a number of things like use some stamping tools. You can actually even insert images if you wish. There are a number of different things that you can do here using those annotation tools. Just know that by default, those are available to you as a presenter when you're using PowerPoint, and later on we'll look at how those can be available for all meeting participants if you've added a shared whiteboard. From that annotation tools menu, note that there is, at the very bottom, a menu represented by 3 little dots. Incidentally, anytime you see those 3 dots, that means more options. So you know that there are more options here within that menu. For example, you can go in here, and this is how you can choose to remove all the annotations from that page. You can also save this file locally with those annotations if you wish. Another exciting option, if you are hosting a more structured or formal type of meeting, is that we now have support for your embedded video clip. So if you have a video clip embedded into one of your PowerPoint slides, you can go along through your presentation, and once you land on the slide that has the video clip, you have the option to play this. It may, depending on how you've chosen to set that up within PowerPoint, the video playback may even start automatically. Note that the audio portion of that clip will play through attendees' speakers. So you will want to announce ahead of time that you're about to play a video, and that if they don't have their headset connected, they may wish to turn down the volume on their speakers. The other thing that happens in terms of audio is that Lync automatically mutes everyone just to make sure that there isn't any incidental background noise while that video is playing. Speaking of video, we're going to play a video for you right now, and this will give you a good idea of what that video playback looks like inside of the Lync meeting environment. And that also gives you an idea of how to manage that application or desktop sharing as well. One of the other options that you can add to your meeting in terms of meeting content is a whiteboard. The whiteboard is probably, in addition to sharing, one of the more flexible meeting content types. It's definitely something that can be used in a structured meeting, something that can be used in a more collaborative meeting, and certainly something that can be added on the fly in the course of a Lync conversation. You can actually have more than one whiteboard added at a time if you wish. To add those whiteboards, you just go to that content menu again, click whiteboard, and it will come in looking just like a big white space. It's essentially a blank canvas. One thing to note is that unlike with your PowerPoint presentation, as soon as you add a whiteboard, those annotation tools appear, and those are available for everyone within the meeting. Essentially what happens here is that everyone in the meeting becomes an equal in terms of what they can contribute to the whiteboard. As a presenter, you still have the same tools that all the attendees have. The difference is that you can, of course, choose to switch to a different content item, whereas the attendees are simply adding to the whiteboard. From that More Options menu that we looked at a moment ago, remember that you can, for example, save this whiteboard, and that will include any notes or annotations that have been added. You can also choose to send the whiteboard to OneNote. Again, some people choose to use the whiteboard and just utilize the text tool to add notes in the course of their meeting. A content item that is likely only going to be used in a more structured type of meeting is your poll. You can add your polls in advance. You can also add number of polls, and you can even add them on the fly. It really only takes a second or two to create those. So again, from your content menu, you click Poll. You're able to give your poll a name, which is helpful if you have many of them. Put in your question and add your answer options. There is no spell check in your poll, just the same as there's no spell check on your whiteboard, there's no spell check in your conversation window. So in a more formal meeting, what you might wish to do is write up that question and the answer options in another application, and then simply copy and paste when it's time to create that poll. Once the poll is displayed in the content stage, attendees are able to submit their answer by clicking on the radio button next to the choice that works best for them. You'll see the totals over on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can use the Poll Actions menu to do things like open and close the poll, show and hide the results to attendees, and even clear the answers if you wish to reuse that again later. You can also save the poll results locally, and that would be either in PNG or CSV format, so you can take advantage of that reporting to incorporate with other systems later on. Another new option is a content item that is called Q&A. This is very likely something that you would only use in that very structured type of meeting. What happens here is you would leverage Q&A as an alternative to having people submit questions over in the conversation window. When you add Q&A, what happens is that the content is added to the content stage, but you're still able to present whatever content was being displayed. So Q&A appears as a second tab in the content stage. Initially, when that's added, attendees will see this tab. You'll want to give them the instructions to click back on the presentation tab to see any content that's being shared. But then people can come back and type in their questions. Any presenter will be able to respond to those questions, so this is very handy when you have a co-presenter. However, do be aware that all of the names of the people who are submitting questions will be displayed here in the Q&A log. That is the same as is true in the conversation window. One difference is that when you have recorded your meeting, if you play it back, what's seen here in the Q&A tab is not captured in the recording, whereas you can choose to display what's in the conversation window. Remember that you can take notes using OneNote in the course of your Lync meeting. You can access any shared notes that were added to the meeting when the meeting was scheduled, or you can start fresh and access shared notes while the meeting is already taking place. Otherwise, you can take personal notes using OneNote. OneNote actually has a nice little template that it sets up for you for taking meeting notes. It will list for you the subject of the meeting, the date and time, and will also add a list for you of who was in the meeting at the time that you clicked on this OneNote icon. You can then, of course, edit those notes, redact them if you wish, and then either share them by posting them, for example, on a SharePoint site, or send them out via email. Another way to share meeting information is by adding attachments to the meeting. Again, all of these options here appear in the content menu. So uploaded content, OneNote, or attachments all live in the same place. To add an attachment to share, just click on the paperclip, browse out, locate the file that you want to share, and then you're able to bring that into the meeting. If you've done this ahead of time, it will be available for meeting participants when they join. If you've done it in the course of the meeting, people will receive a yellow notification letting them know that attachments are available. To download the attachment, you just double-click on the file name next to the paperclip, and you may open up that file and then be able to save it locally. There's another way that people can download content if this is something that you choose to take advantage of. Once you have added some content, you'll notice in your content menu that a button appears that says Manage Presentable Content. And essentially what that means is manage the content that's already been added to your meeting. When you click that, you'll get a window that opens up listing all the content. And this, by the way, will also list for you if you had done any application sharing earlier. That will be listed here as well, even though it's just to let you know that that had happened in the course of the meeting. For content that's been added to the meeting, you'll notice that you can stop presenting or start presenting something that's been added. You can also adjust some permissions as far as that content item goes. So for example, you may choose to have something, an informal meeting, it might be something like a script that is available for other presenters to download, but not something that you would want everyone to have access to. You can make different choices, incidentally, for each one of those content items. One of the other things that you'll notice you have here in that presentable content menu is you have a More button. And from that More menu, you can do things like save that content item with annotations in the case of PowerPoint or a whiteboard. You can send it to OneNote, as you might do with, again, a whiteboard. You can also rename that content item. That can be helpful if you have multiple pieces of content in there, especially, again, if you're doing something that's more formal and you know you'll be switching around a lot. It can just help you to know where you are in the course of your presentation. Let's talk a little bit more about managing meeting participants. So at this point, we've gotten you connected. You can manage your audio and video, and you're familiar with your content options that are available. You also have options in terms of managing meeting participants. You can always add more people to your meeting. So even if they weren't initially invited, especially in a collaborative meeting, you never know what might come up and you need to add someone else to the conversation. There are a couple of ways to do this. You can, from your Participants menu, and you'll do this from hovering so that you get the Actions tab, you can click where it says Invite More People. When you do that, you'll get a link dialog box that comes up, and this is going to allow you to search for a contact or even just someone who's part of your organization's address book. Incidentally, if it is somebody who's in your contact list, you may find it's easier just to open up your main link window, find a contact, and just drag them over the meeting environment. It's just the same as adding someone to a conversation. It's just you're dragging them into a meeting instead. If you need to add someone who is outside of your organization, one of the easiest ways to do that is to invite them by email. As soon as you click this button that says Invite by Email, a new Outlook message will pop open. Note that this is not a calendar request. This is just an email message. In the subject line, it will say Meet Now and your name. You simply need to put in the email address of the person you want to add to the meeting, and the Join Meeting link that's embedded here will be the same one of the meeting. You're not creating anything new. You're just adding people as you need to. Remember that you will see your participant roster here above the conversation window if you have clicked on that participant menu. So if you wish to see that list, you can certainly do that. One about that roster is that you'll notice some icons next to each participant's name. This is going to help you keep track of which modalities in that meeting that individual is connected to. So for example, if you see that the handset icon next to someone is gray, you know that they are not connected to the meeting audio. Similarly, you'll be able to see if people are using their webcam and whether or not they are able to see the content that's being displayed. You'll also have an indication to know who it is who is the active presenter and similarly the active speaker. Now, if you want to take action with just one attendee, something that affects only one person, you will right-click over their name. We already talked about locking the video spotlight to someone, but notice that you can also mute an individual if someone happens to not be aware that they are unmuted and they're having a side conversation. You can mute them so they're not disrupting the meeting. You could remove them from the meeting if you needed to, although I think that's less common. And then you can also make an individual a presenter or make them an attendee. You can, in fact, do both of those within the course of the same meeting. Sometimes you want to make someone a presenter just for a short time and then make them an attendee again. So all of these are actions that you take by right-clicking on a contact's name. Alternately, you can use the Actions menu here in that participants area to take action that is going to affect everyone within the meeting. So for example, if under this Actions tab, you've clicked on where it says Mute Audience, that will mute everyone's microphone. Your co-presenter, incidentally, will have the ability to unmute themselves if they need to. If you choose to click this again and unmute the audience, rest assured you're not automatically opening up everyone's audio line. You're just then giving attendees the ability to unmute themselves. That can be really helpful in a more structured meeting where perhaps you're going to do a verbal Q&A at the end. You can give people the ability to unmute themselves. You could say, for example, if you have a question, go ahead and type something in the conversation window and we'll call on you. And then that would be that person's cue to unmute their microphone. In addition to muting audio and even turning off attendees' ability to start their webcam, you can also turn off the conversation window. You would do that in the Actions menu by clicking No Meeting IM. And what happens when you do that is that even if people are looking at the conversation window, they won't be able to add any new text. They'll be able to see things that were added earlier, but nothing new can be added to that. You can then reopen that if you wish, and people have the ability to contribute. Incidentally, as a best practice, I would not mute the IM and mute the audio, simply because if you do that, you're basically leaving your attendees with no way to communicate with you. For example, if for some reason they're not seeing what you're presenting, you would have no way to know that. We talked about those 3 dots a little bit earlier on. There are some things that you'll find in that menu of the 3 dots in the lower right-hand corner of the meeting. One thing that you'll find is the ability to make changes to some of the meeting options that were selected when the meeting was scheduled. The one that I think is probably used the most is the ability to manage who can get directly into the meeting versus who gets redirected to the meeting lobby. Remember that the meeting lobby is sort of like having a virtual waiting room. You may have, for example, selected to have certain people go to the lobby when the meeting was scheduled, and after your meeting has started, you may not want to keep an eye on seeing oh, there are people in the lobby, oh, there are more people in the lobby. That can be distracting. So what you can do is you can go into that More Options menu, select Meeting Options, and you can decide that anyone can get into the meeting without going to the lobby. Similarly, you can make adjustments to who joins your meeting as a presenter. And then you can also decide here if you want to open up the ability for attendees to use the annotation tools on your PowerPoint presentations. Remember, by default, that is a presenter-only privilege. One of the other things you'll find in that More Options menu is the ability to end the meeting. I think of this as the I'm the last one out of the room command. So what happens when you select this is the meeting will end and everyone who's in the meeting will be disconnected. So that way you know that once you've exited, you've ended the meeting, no one else will be in there after you've left. You may have the ability to record your Lync meeting. If so, again, you'll look in that More Options menu, and you'll see an option that says Start Recording. You may, if you're not yet connected to the meeting audio, instead see a note that says, do you want to record? You need to connect to Lync Audio. So Lync will help you out to know what you need to do. Once you've done that, all you have to do is click where it says Start Recording. You will receive a little pop-up. People will receive a notification that the meeting is being recorded, although, again, as a best practice, you might want to make a verbal announcement just because people aren't always looking directly at the meeting environment itself at the time you start recording. Once the recording has started, notice that you can pause or stop the recording from that More Options menu, though it's easier, I think, to do that from the little recording toolbar that appears just to the right of that quick link bar. Once you've stopped the recording, Lync will start processing that recording, and you'll get a little notification later on when it is ready. You'll access that recording through what's called the Lync Recording Manager. This is going to list for you recordings that you have created. Remember that Lync recordings are saved locally to your computer, and this is how you can access them and then manage them. Once you've found your recording and you'll see that it is completed and available, you can select that recording and click Publish. This gives you the option to rename your recording. By default, it will include the meeting subject, the date, the time. It's a pretty long file name, so you can certainly shorten that up if you wish. You can also decide if you want to save that recording to an alternate local location. Further, you can make some choices by clicking where it says Options. These Save and Publish options give you the ability to decide, again, which meeting elements you want to have included in the playback. So, for example, do you want instant messages or things that have been added to that conversation window to display in the recording playback? You might or might not. At the very least, you want to have your presented content and, I imagine, meeting audio included in that recording playback. Once you do that, you can click OK, and then later on you can choose to view that recording either from the Recording Manager or wherever you have saved it. One of the default formats for that Lync recording is MP4. Now with Microsoft, that means that you will be playing that MP4 in your Zune player, but you do have the ability to play it back using another media player as well. For example, if you wish, you can play it back using Windows Media. That's a pretty commonly accessible file type. It may also be a file type that is easier to, for example, post online or share with other people after the meeting. Speaking of sharing with other people, we do have the Lync Web App. Now the web app is great because this means that when you schedule your meeting, you never need to worry about whether or not the people you're inviting have Lync because they can always join on the web app. If you happen to be inviting someone as a co-presenter, you just really want to make sure that that individual follows the prompts to install the web app plugin. Because without the plugin, there are a number of things that are not supported, the most important being voice. But also there are some things in terms of displaying content that won't be supported or won't be optimal unless that plugin is installed. The process of joining using the web app is pretty straightforward. So if you choose to join, you'll get a little pop-up and Lync says, "It doesn't look like you have Lync installed. Would you like to join using the web app?" And of course you say, "Why, of course." You can type. Notice that if you are part of the same organization as the person who scheduled the meeting, you may be able to sign in as an authenticated user as well. Either way, we really do advise you to go ahead and install that web app plugin. If there's been an update, you'll be notified of that as well. And once you've done this, if you know that you'll be joining some meetings, you can go ahead and select Remember Me. It just is helpful if you're going to be presenting from the web app number of times. Once you have done that and you've installed the plugin, then after you've joined the meeting, you can go ahead and connect to the streaming Lync audio, and you can even start displaying your webcam as well. And then, of course, as a presenter, you can start adding meeting content. If you do not want to join the meeting using the Lync audio, you don't necessarily need to install the plugin, although if you are going to be presenting, it's still a good idea. You can also then join the audio. Again, if you don't want to use the Lync audio, you may be able to have Lync call you, again, if you have Lync Enterprise Voice, or you can simply say that you will dial in to the meeting, of course, using whatever dial-in conferencing numbers were published in the invitation when that was sent out. Once you choose to dial in, of course, you can do so, and then just as before, you can use that audio menu to manage your devices if necessary. As we wrap up, we do have a couple of best practices to pass along. For those more collaborative meetings, and again, there are no set boundaries as to what is collaborative and what is not collaborative, we do think it's important to try to use that webcam capability. It really adds a more human element to those collaborative meetings, particularly if you're part of some remote teams where perhaps you've never met the person face-to-face. I think you'll find that if you are pitching an idea to the group and they're able to see your face, see your passion, see your sincerity, chances are they're more likely to listen more closely to what it is you're sharing. As we talked about, you definitely want to set up your audio and video devices ahead of time. And certainly think about opening up some of those features that we've looked at to other people. You can even make everybody in your meeting a presenter if you want to. And remember to use those tools like save with the annotations or send to OneNote, a number of different ways to make those meeting materials available after the meeting, which is especially important if people have been sharing fantastic ideas. You want to make sure that those are preserved. In your more structured meeting, things will be a little bit different. It is definitely a best practice to have at least one co-presenter just to help you manage the meeting, especially helpful in cases where you're using Q&A or even if you're using the conversation window for people to submit questions and comments. It can be a little difficult if you have a lot of people in the meeting and you're trying to present content at the same time. If you are having something that's very formal, very scripted, it is a great idea to schedule a dry run to deliver that presentation in the Lync meeting room. Sort of the difference between, if you're doing a presentation at, a convention center and you're practicing your speech to yourself in the car on the way there versus doing it in the meeting room where you are connected to the sound system and, all of those things. So it can be, I think, important in terms of ensuring your success with that presentation. If you can, before your dry run, go ahead and add any meeting content ahead of time. Again, it'll give you a chance to practice with the material, but also it's less things you have to do at the last minute. If it's something that's pretty formal and pretty scripted, you may want to build in some things to keep the audience more engaged. So, for example, something hands-on, whether it's a poll, inviting people to add something to the conversation window. If you don't give people something to do with their hands every so often, they will go check their email because they feel like they're sitting there idle, not doing anything. So you want to give them something hands-on to do. And remember that you can record your meeting and then make it available for people offline. If you need to do more than that, just know that there are some partners that Microsoft works with, so you can certainly explore those options online and see which sorts of partners might be able to assist you further. Of course, there are more resources available. We've covered a lot of material today, so remember that you can always review help topics and how-to articles, all sorts of things. The main place to go is that Get Started with Lync page, and then it sort of branches out into more detailed information. We do have some downloadable quick reference cards available, although I will say you'll certainly want to defer to anything that's been shared by your internal organization, your Lync team, because of course they're going to have a closer idea of what's available for you, and of course any policies that are associated with using Lync within your company. We do have additional training courses available. Many of these are offered by real live people several times a week. If those options don't work for your schedule, of course, you're already aware that we do have some on-demand recordings as well. And as a last note, we do have a whole page devoted to listing out some best practices for how to run your meeting successfully. You'll see most of what we talked about today, but there are also a few topics that are more specific to a certain type of scenario that you might find yourself in. For example, that scenario where you have some people on site in a conference room and some people joining you remotely. There's additional help on that as well. With that, we thank you for your attention today. We wish you all the best of luck getting started with presenting in Lync, and we hope to see you in future Lync training courses. Thank you.